Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, and I'm back here in the studio to give you an update on the situation at Duelist Den and the whole zoning board thing. And first, before I even do that, let me just say thank you for everyone who contributed to the GoFundMe account for my legal fees. I just can't tell you how touched I am. I mean, the response was tremendous, way beyond anything that we expected, and I really appreciate it. Now, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, who have other things in their lives that are more important than what's happening to me, as hard as that would be for me to believe, let me just give you a recap. As a lot of you know, I own a property that I call Duelist Den. It's in a rural township here in Pennsylvania, in southern York County. It's North Hopewell Township. And I use that for hunting and shooting, having lunch on nice summer days. But I film a lot of my videos on the channel there at Duelist Den. So if you follow the channel, you've seen me at Duelist Den quite a bit. And I should point out that the only person who shoots at Duelist Den is me. I'm the only person who goes there. During the warm weather months, I average less than once a week there because I'm not always home. Sometimes I'm traveling. I do events during the summer. I'm a speaker. I do seminars. I do presentations. I camp at 18th century events, and I go to various historical events. I'm not home every week, and sometimes weather doesn't cooperate, and other times I may be videoing a gun, like a long gun, say a flintlock rifle or something like that requires 100 or 200 yard range, which I don't have at the den. So I'll be at one of the gun clubs. So I'm not there every week. And I try to go during the week, like on a Wednesday. Wednesdays are my favorite days to go. And the reason I do that is so that I won't be disturbing anybody else in town on their weekend. I won't be, doing the pew pew bang bang during hamburger time or when somebody's trying to sleep late on a weekend. Because I am available during the week, that's when I try to get things done. So, to my surprise, at the end of February, I got a letter from the North Hopewell Township Zoning Board saying that they considered what I was doing at Duelist Den to be operating a shooting range, and that I did not have a zoning permit to operate a shooting range. And furthermore, if I was operating a shooting range, I'm in violation of all these ordinances on operating a shooting range. I need to have 7-foot-high non-scalable berms and on and on and on, just a whole bunch of stuff. Danger signage and designated parking and just crazy stuff that obviously is written for either a commercial enterprise or a large gun club, right? Not for a guy who goes out and shoots on his property. And all my neighbors shoot on their property, right? Now, my property's in a conservation zone, so there are no houses anywhere around me. I have very safe fields of fire. My backstop is a 100-foot ridge, and the nearest houses are quite some distance away on the other sides of both sides of that ridge. I'm in a hollow, right? I'm in a hollow like this, Blymeyer's Hollow. So I was amazed that I was getting that. And I thought, well, obviously there's some mistake here. And I thought in a quick 10-minute conversation with the person who sent me the letter, the acting zoning officer, the actual zoning officer wouldn't even sign it out, but the acting zoning officer, a quick 10-minute conversation would satisfy that. So I called him up, left a message, and eventually he got back to me. And I'm not going to tell you his name. And the reason I'm not going to tell you his name is because I don't want any violence done to this guy. I have to say, most of the people who have responded to my pleas on this have been fantastic. But there have been a couple of people who wanted to know his name, and they threatened violence to him and his family. Some bad stuff. And I don't condone that, and I'm sure most of you don't either. We shouldn't condone it. And the other thing we should be aware of is when you see things like that, that's not us. Lots of times, at best, that's a troll, and at worst, it's someone who's trying to incite us to violence so that they can get us arrested or so they can get us a bad name. And you might think that doesn't happen, but it absolutely does. So don't fall into that trap of being the person that they accuse you of being, right? We are not violent thugs or nuts or anything like that. Now, I'm not going to condone that. We believe in the Constitution and the rule of law. And that's what my defense is going to be based on, by the way. So anyway, so I got this notice. I called up the acting zoning officer, and I said, "Boy, there must be some mistake. I'm not running a shooting range. It's just me going down there periodically, doing the same thing my neighbors all around me do." And I thought, I said, I'm sure we can get this cleared up pretty quickly. And to my surprise, we did not get it cleared up pretty quickly because this acting zoning officer was arrogant and condescending and had an absolute agenda and was not budging an inch, which really surprised me. I guess it shouldn't have, but it did. So I said to him, how can it be that I'm doing the same thing my neighbors are doing and they are not being accused of operating a shooting range, but I am? And he told me it's because I did not have a house or a camp on my property, and that they do. And I said, well, what difference does that make? And he said, Pennsylvania law says that you can shoot on your own property if you have a house or a camp on it. You don't have one, so therefore Pennsylvania state law does not give you the right to shoot on your own property. I said, are you really sure about that? I said, are you telling me that I can hunt on my property? He said, absolutely. You telling me that I can carry a firearm on my property anytime I want? He said, absolutely. I said, I can shoot a coyote or varmints on my property any day of the year? He said, absolutely. I said, but if I shoot at a piece of paper to see if my rifle is sighted in before I go shoot that coyote, you're telling me I'm breaking the law? He said, that's right. I said, well, I don't think that's true. And believe me, I didn't think that's true because the law that governs this stuff is PA Title 34, which I happen to know frontwards and backwards for a couple of reasons. One reason is because I've been the officer, in fact, the president of a big gun club. And knowing the shooting laws on occasion has been quite important to us. So I said to this guy, I think you're mistaken. He said, that is state law. There's nothing I can do about it. I said, okay. I said, well, in that case, it's time for me to get a lawyer. Because all this guy's trying to do is intimidate me out of this, make me think that there's no hope. And also, of course, the way they engineer this, it is very difficult for the little guy to win one of these cases. And I'll explain why in a minute. But that's where I left it. I said, well, I'm going to have to get a lawyer. And I did. And I got a very good team of lawyers who specialize in municipal law. Not Second Amendment law, because, believe me, that's not the thing that's at issue here. Yeah, I mean, you may feel in your heart it is, but what's at issue here is municipal law, zoning law versus Pennsylvania state law. So I got a specialty team of attorneys who work on that. And of course, they're very expensive. So I was concerned that I was going to be impoverished. This is going to cost me my life savings in no time. Because, believe me, people say, well, spend your Patreon money on this, and which I am. But what I make on 1 month in Patreon is what my head lawyer charges for 1 hour of his time. Okay, so there's no way I can get ahead on that. But if you want to win, you got to bring in the gunfighters, and that's what I did. So while I was worried that I was going to become a pauper over this, which is exactly what they want, by the way. You know, they want you to to say, well, I guess I just ought to sell the place up and get out and go find someplace else because it's too much trouble to fight City Hall. That's what they count on. And I just couldn't do that. I mean, it's probably a character flaw on my part, but I just could not do that. So a friend of mine, Ken Hill, who is quite knowledgeable on these things, he's run a few charities before, and Ken is very well known in the reenacting and muzzleloading community in Kentucky and in the whole mid-Atlantic and southern region of the country. So I never met Ken personally, but I know him on Facebook, and Ken and I have a number of friends together. So he contacted me and said he's got a GoFundMe account. He's run some charities before. He'd like to start one for me, which he did, which had a $10,000 limit on it. And as you know, 2 weeks ago, I came out to you with a plea to help out. And you responded in a way that amazed me and amazed Ken. So that GoFundMe account has about $60,000 in it now, just a little shy. And I asked Ken to stop accepting donations, to turn that off, because we've got enough money to do what we need to do with this, so I don't need to get more money out of you. Now, when I did that, I started getting emails from people quite annoyed with me saying, hey, I'm trying to donate and it's not accepting contributions. I want to participate in this. And of course, I don't want to be fleecing you. You know, my desire was not to come out to you and get enough money to buy a Mercedes or something. I just want to fight this fight. And you generously have provided the money to do that. I mean, unbelievable. But I didn't realize how much of a chord this would strike with people. And I find that very gratifying, not just for me, but for all of us. Because, as I've discovered from people writing to me, a lot of you out there are like me. You've got a little piece of property in the country that you use for shooting on and maybe camping and hunting and, you know, in general recreation that gives you a sane place to go when the world gets to be annoying, right? And if they can take away mine, they can take away yours, right? So either people have a piece of property like that, or they hope to someday have a piece of property like that, or they know they'll never get a piece of property like that, but at least they can watch me shoot on mine and vicariously enjoy it. And the thought that that can be taken away from them got quite a few people very angry that government should not have that kind of overreach. And I get it, because that's exactly the way I feel. And because of that, I'm just going to tell you, if you contact me through my website, MikeBellevue.com, and you ask for an address to mail a donation to for the legal fund, I will provide it to you. But I'm not going to turn on the GoFundMe fundraising thing. I don't want to end up with $100,000 that I don't need. It's just makes me feel like I did this to make some money. So that's why the funding is turned off. Okay, but like I say, if you really want to give because you want to feel like you're a part of this, that's fine. And to everybody who has given, thank you very much. And to those of you who didn't give because you can't afford it, first of all, I totally understand that. I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I'm doing okay right now, but, we've all been in parts of our life when we were not, and I had young kids, when I was getting divorced, and, I was losing everything I owned. We all go through stuff like that in our lives. And just the fact that you support what I'm doing, you don't need to support me with money, but that you provided moral support and emotional support, you've written to me and wished me well on that, that matters a great deal to me. It really does. So if you couldn't provide money, that's okay. Just knowing that you're behind me, it really makes life a little bit better. So I want to address just a couple of misconceptions in this video kind of quickly. A lot of people have said, oh, this is happening because you live in Pennsylvania, it's a blue state, move to fill in the blank. Right? And I just want to let you know that I understand how you can have that misperception, but that's wrong. Now, Pennsylvania is kind of a purple state. That might be a little more blue than red right now, but I know everybody says, oh, John Fetterman got elected to the Senate. If you're going to elect John Fetterman, guys, you could elect a ham sandwich, which is kind of true. But he only got in by like a point. And the reason he got elected is because we fielded some pretty poor candidates. Not that I've got anything against Dr. Oz, but he did not excite the Republican base here because people were afraid he's really a secret rhino, and the Democratic Party spent a lot of money making people think that. So, and that was still a squeaker. The fact of the matter is, here in Pennsylvania, that the cities, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Harrisburg, Erie, they are like 100% Democratic. You can't find a Republican in Philadelphia. Literally cannot find one. In fact, I think they voted 114% Democrat for Obama. I'm not even joking about that. In most of the precincts, there wasn't a single Republican vote. And when you count the cemetery vote and all that, it came out pretty good. However, when you get away from the big cities, Pennsylvania is cherry red for the most part. I mean, around Harrisburg and the suburbs where you have a lot of government folk, it gets a little more purple. But down in North Hopewell Township where my land is, man, that's like candy apple red. All right, it's not Democrats doing this. It's fellow Republicans. And this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. What it is bureaucrats who believe they have absolute power over your life in their area. And that can happen with Democrats or Republicans, believe me. You get people that feel like they own that they're invested in it, and that their word is law. And that's what I'm dealing with. This guy who's the acting zoning officer, I don't personally know him, but just by luck, he's a bridge engineer. Okay, he builds bridges, and it just so happens that for the last year and a half, I've been building a bridge at my gun club, and I have to go through the same rigmarole to put a bridge over a 10-foot creek as I would if I was building a bridge over the Susquehanna River on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The same permitting, the same engineering process, the same everything. So I am a self-taught bridge engineer. I'm the project manager on that. And in the last year and a half, I learned more on bridges than I ever want to know. And because of that, I now know a lot of people in the bridge community. Because I've had to talk to dozens of people to learn how to do this. So I reached out and I asked everybody if they know this guy. And everybody told me the same thing, which is that he is an arrogant SOB who has a high opinion of himself and who bullies people to get his own way. And that's, not atypical for this sort of bureaucrat. So he's not budging. So we have requested a hearing with the zoning board to review this. And that's the first step in this whole procedure. And one of my lawyers actually contacted this guy. And first she contacted the township solicitor to tell him that, hey, if you haven't talked to these guys yet, you probably ought to, because legally they don't seem to know what they're doing, that the law is like 100% on my side. And the township solicitor told her that he didn't know anything about this, that he wasn't involved, and didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And this is a pretty common theme among other members of the government in North Hopewell Township. Because there's a lot of dissension I'm finding in there because people don't like this. So my lawyer called up the guy who's pushing this, the acting zoning officer, and thought, just like I had thought originally, that like a 10-minute conversation, she'll explain to him what the law actually means as opposed to what he thinks it means, and then we don't need to do an appeal. they'll just rescind this. And she called me up and she said, wow. She said, this is the most arrogant guy I've talked to in some time. She said, I deal with lawyers, so I'm used to dealing with arrogant people. She said, he's amazing, and he's not giving an inch. She said, and I tried to explain to him that there's a reason that you pay lawyers for their legal knowledge, because she said, we actually know what the law means, and non-lawyers often don't. But he's not budging. She said, and he's basing his whole thing on PA Title 34. She said, which is exactly wrong what he's doing. So we're good on that. So that's kind of the good news. We're going to file the appeal, and the law's on our side. Now the date for my hearing, because everybody wants to know what's next, is the 12th of April. So I probably won't know anything until the end of April. And to be honest with you, my lawyers think that this hearing is a crapshoot. Because as they've told me, this is not a judicial proceeding, this is a political proceeding. And they can back up their stupid political decision from the first time here. There's no reason that they wouldn't, except common sense. And they didn't exercise that the first time. Now, the thing that's helpful to our cause is that they know we will take them to court. And if they lose in court, we can sue them to recover all of our costs plus damages. And the way the zoning law is written in Pennsylvania, the township doesn't pay those fees or that assessment. The actual zoning board officers themselves have to pay for it personally. No township funds can be spent on that. Because the zoning law in Pennsylvania says that if there is any ambiguity in the zoning ordinance, that you have to find in favor of the property owner. Any ambiguity. So the best case they should have found in my favor. But because it's a political thing, it's no guarantee. And we don't know who the actual complainant is. They won't share that with us. So it could be one of my neighbors. I've got a neighbor who's been trying to drive me off my land for years so he can buy it cheap and add it to his land. He's tried to make it unusable by me, tried to make it impossible for me to enter my land, all sorts of things. So it could be him filing a complaint to try to get me out of there because he's done some pretty dirty deeds before. Or it could be somebody that has either financial or political clout within the township who decided he just doesn't want me around. It could be something like that. So they might still decide to push it. We just don't know. But if they do, we're going to sue them in Commonwealth Court. And my lawyers tell me that the law is pretty unambiguously on our side. Both PA Title 34, which they are totally misinterpreting, and the other thing is the right to shoot on your own property is not a right that the local government is able to ordinance away. That is strictly the province of the state. And the local government cannot preempt that power. And that's come up in Pennsylvania before. So that's our second area of attack. So like if Harrisburg tried to enact a more stringent concealed carry requirement than the state's concealed carry requirement, they would not be able to do that. And in fact, this has gone to court several times for municipalities that tried to enhance the gun laws. If you don't report your gun stolen within 24 hours, and you can lose your concealed carry permit. Stuff like that has been tried, and it gets defeated every time because the local government does not have the right to preempt the power of the state. And clearly this ordinance is doing that. So that's like the secondary area that the lawyers are going to work on. And then they've got a whole lot of sunshine law violations and stuff like that. So you can hear Mrs. Duelist Den upstairs has turned on the vacuum, so I'm going to have to get out of here. But anyway, 12th of April, the next thing, end of April, I should be back to you. Then I'll know if we're going to court. If we're going to court, our chances are very, very good. And current case law is pretty much all in our favor. Though sometimes that's had to go to the appellate level, but thanks to you guys, I have enough money to fund an appeal if necessary. So, so once again, thank you for all your help. That's where things stand. I have a gentleman's agreement right now with the township, actually with the secretary of the township, who's a very nice lady, who I have told that I will not shoot on the property until this is resolved. So I'm not doing anything at Duelist Den videos or anything like that. I may do some at the gun club fairly soon, and I've got some upcoming travel and seminars that I'm giving in a couple of locations. So I won't be doing any shooting videos for a while until all that business wraps up. But you probably won't see anything from the den until this summer. I hope by then we have everything settled, but if we have to go to court, it could be some time before that's all done. So I'll try to keep you updated, but like I say, it'll be the end of April probably before you hear from that again on this subject. And between now and then, hopefully you'll just get gun stuff out of me. So thanks for sticking with me, and thanks for listening to this. And, I'll see you next week. Till then, bye.